year. Right. And then they decide not to. Can they do that, or once they give a notice of retirement, they have to take it, do you know?
No, there's no binding obligation that ties any employee, other than public safety employees that reach age 65, where
Yeah.
they don't have a choice. There's nothing that binds.
So they could notify us and then change their mind before their retirement date.
I just want to be, I just want to be sure I heard this right. Greg, did you say that they have to notify us prior? Now, is there a time frame when they have to notify us, like 6 months before they're going to retire? They don't have to do that.
That, not to my knowledge.
Okay, so
but-
that's wide open.
But, Human Resources has been pretty good in terms of staying in touch with those employees who have exercised their 15% longevity benefit. We
Right.
pretty much have a number of employees that we stay in touch with to determine whether they wish to retire or they intend to retire. And there's typically a process that we go through over a period of months where those people want to know about contacting Middlesex Retirement, and they want to know what their potential retirement benefits will be. They inquire about health insurance as retirees. So we can kind of see these things coming for the most part.
Right. But I mean, somebody could walk in, let's say they already collected
Yeah.
their 15%, they could say, I'm going in a month.
Yes, they could.
Say, okay, yeah, that's, I think that's what Bob was kind of asking.
Well, no, the concern I have, the concern I have is related to how to budget for the amount. I
Right,
think we have
right.
an estimate right now of $475,000
Yep.
in our 2010 plan, if I'm correct here. And the concern I have obviously is, it's a big number, and in fact, if it can be cut down, that helps us. And, I was just trying to understand what the requirements are for people, it's 425, excuse me, is what we put in there, which is the 3-year average. Because last year, the number had ended up being a lot smaller.
But the residual that was in that account, did we or did we not put that in that retirement trust account?
What residual?
Well, in other words, we budgeted the same amount, but.
No, we did
for the
not.
quarter?
We dropped it in balancing the budget last year. When we knew what the number was, it got changed. And it was, in fact, I don't know if it's on here or not, but
Again, we should be talking about doing something similar to the debt stabilization fund, whereby no appropriate 425 every year, you use 275, at least you have some residual in there to balance it up.
as soon as we can find some
As
money,
soon as we
Steve.
can find some money, yeah. But right now, we have it factored into our budget.
Okay, the next one, we all set on that one? It'll be a number, I've asked the school department to provide that number on several of our meetings, and still haven't got, I think we should have that in the next week or so. Next article is amend vote under Article 23, April 3rd, 2006 town meeting. What is this all about?
So, this would be an annual appropriation. The DPW director had suggested at the joint budget hearing earlier in January about finding a way of recapturing monies paid in fees from the trash budget and having it go back into an account, solid waste stabilization fund, to cover future trash, unanticipated trash or refuse expenses. This accomplishes that without creating an enterprise fund. I think I did
And
previously.
why would we not create an enterprise fund?
I'm not sure it's the right timing because of the timing involved in running an enterprise fund has significant demands on the accounting department until we really transition over to Munis, and we know that the Munis system is working up and running. I would caution against being too ambitious with our plans. And I think this accomplishes exactly what we want, which is to make sure that any balance remaining in unused solid waste budget money is transferred to this stabilization fund at the end of the fiscal year.
And DOR is okay with this?
We'd have to do it annually, but they're
Yes,
okay.
yeah, I
with it.
understand.
Yeah.
So, and the transfer would take place at the end of the fiscal year.
Right, we wouldn't need to state a specific dollar amount in this.
So the bookkeeping associated with receipts and costs against the, because right now the money just comes into the general fund, right?
Right, and it really is
And
fee
it's a
money.
budget line item. So we really want it to be an enterprise fund at some point, I think.
I think so, but like you said, I think until Mr. Hanlon is gonna be retiring within the next year. Our long-serving DPW director and the Munis project are items that I think we need to focus our attention there versus creating an enterprise fund. I think it's probably something that's better down the road.
I guess I'm a little confused as to
I don't understand why
what the problem of creating an enterprise.
creating an enterprise fund, there's obviously something that I don't know, or I
No,
missed.
We have a
there's
number of them.
significant amount of accounting that's required of our
Yeah, I would think
finance
that
department.
that same amount of accounting
Right.
is required associated with keeping track of receipts that are related to solid waste and
No.
expenses that are related to it.
Yes, sir. You have to have, if you're establishing an enterprise fund, you need to account for your indirect costs, you need to bill your indirect costs, and establish a budget amount for that, again, I'm cautioning that we're being much too ambitious in establishing an enterprise fund with a retiring DPW director, and also with doing so with implementation of the Munis project. I believe that there's a significant amount of accounting that's involved, and I fear that we're not set up to do that right now. And I would
Well,
caution
you've
against
added
it.
something that I hadn't thought about. You're talking about the cost of managing that is accounted for in the enterprise fund, and therefore there's billing that, against, there's funding for percentage of DPW time, et cetera, for the management of solid waste.
Just the way the trash budget is set up right now is it's lumped within all of our estimated receipts. So we have about $4 million in estimated receipts that we collect. Keep in mind that until just the last year or 2 years, the trash fees were always less than what we budgeted. So we collected less than what we budgeted. Within the aggregation of $4 million in estimated receipts, if we collected less, there are other receipts that offset that. I think we need to have a better understanding that we are always collecting more in enterprise fund revenues, or always collecting more in trash fund revenues on a consistent basis over a period of time before we go fully into establishing an enterprise fund. And 1 or 2 years, 1 year of history saying that we had a positive balance, to me, is not sufficient to establish an enterprise fund, because if you are in a deficit in the enterprise fund, then conceivably you run into all types of financial problems, and I think that we need to play it out a little bit longer and make sure that we're collecting enough money in that account so that we don't run into that problem down the road.
Okay. I can understand your concerns to some degree, but, you know, we've got $100,000 in the Neswick fund, somewhere around there.
Mhm.
And wouldn't that be put into the enterprise fund to deal with, you know, potential deficit? I mean, that's what that money was there for anyway. It was to help us keep the rate flat for a period of time until that money ran out, and then we'd obviously have to raise the rates. I understand the issue of timing with Munis and the fact that you'd like to associate any administrative cost to the enterprise, okay? You know, I buy that, and if it means that we wait a year and do it then, that's fine. But it seems to me that in terms of funds available, we actually have some Nesbitt money. I think Dave was proposing doing something like this because he lost $110,000 last year as a result of the free cash recap and the tax liens, right? That money never went back into
Right.
the account.
on the flip side, there were years in the past where the amount of trash fees collected were considerably less than what it cost us to dispose of it. So understand that there was a history over a period of time where we collected less than we spent, and the general fund was in fact subsidizing the trash budget, so.
Or money coming out of the Neswick Fund.
No, there was a subsidy from the tax base to
Oh,
fund the
yes,
trash
there
program.
was a subsidy for the pickup.
But not only that we were collecting less than what we anticipated. Before there was ever any trash stabilization fund set up, the town was consistently not collecting what it established its trash budget to be.
I understand, all right.
There was an assumption.
So in other words, the tipping fee portion, the cost of tipping fee was in excess of what we were collecting from the users for the stickers or.
Right,
Up
Okay.
until 2 years ago,
Yeah.
that was the case.
just until a little bit,
Up until
Okay.
2 years ago, that was the case. Now it's a freestanding, self-sustaining.
Well, and as of last year,
As of
it's
last
totally
year.
freestanding.
I would have less concerns about doing an enterprise fund with Mr. Hamlin being here, but given the fact that we're transitioning to a new DPW director sometime in 2009, I think it's prudent to wait that issue out a bit and let the new DPW director really review that and come back with a recommendation a year from now.
Any other questions, comments?
I'm just unclear as to the wording of this article. What are you actually looking to amend?
The article that was set up established that we were going to be taking this one-time proceeds through the Neswick settlement and establishing and putting that amount in its entirety into something called the Trash Stabilization Fund or the Solid Waste Stabilization Fund. What we want to do is we want to expand the wording for monies going into the Solid Waste Stabilization Fund to include any excess balance that remains in the trash budget at the end of the fiscal year.
Otherwise, goes into free cash. So it's really an addition to the current language. Any other questions on this article? Yes, authorize lease of municipal property.
Should we just back up a little bit? Just in relation to that, do we have an estimated or projected surplus for the fiscal year end on that, in this account?
I can get that for you
Yeah,
for your
okay.
next session.
I just anticipate that someone might ask, how much are we actually talking about ensuring that it goes into this specified account as opposed to having it become free cash?
Sure. As a function of how well the recycling is going.
I know, yeah.
Authorized lease of municipal property. This has got to do with what? Oh, the
Water towers.
water towers. Right.
Preparing a bid package that we would like to get out on the streets and have advertised and have bids in hand so that when we go to town meeting, we know exactly what the value is of leasing out these parcels. These are existing water towers that exist, and my understanding is in the past the town has at least suggested that this is something it might want to do, given the shortfall of anticipated operating revenues for fiscal year 2010. Administration believes that it's appropriate to bring the issue back again. I've already had discussions with at least one vendor who has indicated that the sites, in their opinion, are excellent. They're ready to go. Just keep in mind, in terms of the last time that we did this, there was a procurement that was done in 2005 for a cell tower up at Swan Pond, and that was recently permitted within the last year. The amount of money that was bid at that time was $21,600 per year. My judgment is that the market is considerably stronger right now to bring in even more than that. So potentially, we have a revenue gain here by doing this that would allow the town to receive additional funds.
We have more than a revenue gain. We actually end up having service in areas where we currently don't have service.
Like your neighborhood?
Like my neighborhood.
So you'll be voting in favor of this,
Like your neighborhood and heading up Haverhill Street.
I wouldn't vote in favor if it wasn't in the best interest of the town.
No, I know.
Haverhill Street, that section of Haverhill Street up by the Congregational
But
Church.
there's several
North of
areas
my mother's house.
that are.
There's a lot